I'm Allie, and this is Oops, I Arted, a part of the Hayden Collins Intelligence Syndicate, and I'm joined today by Jack, our video guy.
Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller.
A little bit, we're doing something different today. Every once in a while, we might feature a friend or someone who's interested in the arts when one of us can't make it. So today we're going to be talking about Bram Stoker and his conspiracy about Queen Elizabeth I.
What's he from?
He wrote Dracula.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's that guy. Just wrote one of the classics, you know. No
Casually.
biggie. So, Bram Stoker also wrote the novel Famous Imposters in 1910, which is a non-fiction novel uncovering the hoaxes and famous imposters of history. So in this novel, he has written that Queen Elizabeth I of England, the Virgin Queen,
Of course.
is a man.
But she's a queen.
Yes. Allow me to explain.
Please do.
So this conspiracy is known as the Bisley Boy conspiracy. And the story has it that Elizabeth was sent away to live in a village around 10 years old because there was an outbreak of the bubonic plague.
Oh, dear.
In London.
Those poor Londoners.
Yes, we've all seen the Monty Python, Bring Out Your Dead.
I'm not dead yet.
So she was sent to live in a village known as Bisley. They wanted to get her as far away from the plague as they could, and she was precious. So they were like, we must protect the heiress to the throne.
The future queen.
Yes. And anyways, she gets there and supposedly she died in the village. She got sick anyways. And the courtiers and her governess didn't know what to do. They panicked. Because how do you tell the king, hey, we sent your daughter away, but she died anyways?
Yeah, so you remember that kid you have?
That's a quick way to get killed. Just in my opinion. It was a different time. It was the 1500s.
You could get away with this sort of thing.
Yeah, so her governess, her name's Lady Cat Ashley, and guardian, Sir Thomas Parry, they were there, and supposedly they tried to conceal the death. So here's where the conspiracy comes in. I got all this, by the way, from some websites called thevintagenews.com and historyanswers.co.uk, so you know it's a good website.
You know it's from Britain.
Anyways, so King Henry, her dad, was scheduled to come see her soon to check on her.
How are they gonna hide the fact that there's a dead kid?
They devised a plan. They buried the body, which we'll talk about in a second, and then they looked around in the village, the whole village of Bisley, and were like, we need a red-headed little girl. And there was not a single red-headed little girl. They found a boy named Neville. Very, very England name.
Mr. Longbottom.
Neville. And they put him in a wig and a dress, and were like, this is your daughter. The king bought it.
Wow.
Yes.
Some dad.
And then the boy just continued being the queen.
I mean...
Neville, the Queen of England.
I mean, why not, though? You're in some grungy town, and the plague's going on, you're like, oh, my life is so short, there's no way I'm gonna survive. Might as well play it up as a queen, right?
Live the life of luxury. Why not? So, that's supposedly also why she wears all the makeup that she wears, and she's got all the wigs.
She's so heavily caked in that powder.
Yes, the white, because pale skin meant you were not working outside, which deemed you royal. That's why people wanted to be pale.
Yeah, nowadays people go out to a spray tan lounge.
Yes, everybody wants to be tan these days. It's a different time. And that's also why she wore the collars, because, you know, it's kind of hard to hide that Adam's apple.
I never thought about that. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and the big clothing, you know how they wore so many gowns back then that their body was basically shapeless.
Yeah.
So they, I guess we should consider their terms.
Yeah.
So we'll call them they. It was very easy to conceal their boy body, basically. And that's also, according to the conspiracy, why she was considered the Virgin Queen.
Good point. Since they could have possibly been a guy. Sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, he couldn't get pregnant.
Yeah.
So he couldn't have a line. So just be a virgin.
That's a good cover-up. Wow.
Right? You know, there's a lot of good points to this conspiracy. Almost enough to convince me that it's real.
Yeah, it's a little scary how possible it could have been, considering the time. You couldn't just have a police squad just search for forensics. this kid was buried in some yard. They couldn't have dogs go out searching for this kid.
And we'll talk about that in a second, but the queen had a statement, her declaration, quote, "I have the heart of a man, not a woman, and I'm not afraid of anything."
Oh.
Are you convinced yet?
Oh.
Yes. So, Bram Stoker comes back in Famous Imposters. He recounts a story of a coffin that was discovered in Bisley, close to the house where Elizabeth was staying.
Mm-hmm.
And inside the coffin were the remains of a young girl who supposedly was wearing lavish clothes and jewelry, and that made them believe that she belonged to an elite family.
An aristocratic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that makes it... Wow. That's some pretty harsh evidence, gotta say.
Yeah. So he wrote in the book, quote, "All honor to her, whosever she may have been, boy or girl matters not." Because, I mean, they beat the Spanish Armada.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I also read on the History Answers that there was a parade or celebration where they would, like, parade the queen around. No, sorry, let me start over. There was a parade in Bisley where they would have a boy dress up as a girl and they would parade around the town. Let me see if I can find it.
Now, most people would just dismiss that as, in the time, only actors that were allowed to act were male, so they would have to dress up as the female characters. But because of this story, because of the idea that someone could have replaced a child with a male child and pass him off as the queen, it's very interesting that it's a tradition in the town that it said that it happened in.
Yeah, I thought it was a little ironic too. I don't know if it's a tradition to this day, but I think it raised some questions and maybe sparked this whole conspiracy, kind of a snowball effect. And I also did consider the fact that men played roles, especially in Shakespearean theater. I mean, Romeo and Juliet, sorry to ruin the love story for everybody, but Juliet was also a man.
Yeah, that's two dudes. It's the best story there is.
I would love to go see that, honestly. But that's a different story for a different time.
They should have two uncomfortable high schoolers kiss each other.
No, definitely not high schoolers. But that would definitely be a good show topic, the fact that men had to play all the roles.
Interesting moral applications for
yes.
the time.
Also, just toxic masculinity, but
true.
It's none of my business. It just kind of blows my mind a little bit in this story that her father didn't notice. That's really what tears it all apart. I lived with my dad, and I had a twin sister, and he could notice anything different. If we were trying to, like, fool his friends, that we would, like, change clothes while we were, like, hanging out, and then we'd, like, go out and, like, pretend to be the other one, and my dad would be like, "What are you guys doing? Why'd you change?" So I find it hard to believe that Henry wasn't like, that sure does look like a boy.
Okay, but not to play the devil's advocate or anything, but that is a time period in her life where she was growing, she was maturing, she was growing into her womanhood. This is puberty. The kid's facial structure changes. It's completely different than when he first saw his little baby girl. Now she could be what is considered at the time a full-grown woman.
I guess you could also consider that Henry wasn't spending a lot of time with the child, because from what I gather from this era, the Renaissance era, and just from monarchy, queen, king style ruling, is that they have other people take care of the child, like the governess and the courtiers and her guardian.
Well, they do say it takes a village.
Haha. That carries multitudes of meaning, though. I mean, there's a big difference between being the primary caretaker of your child and having a nanny.
True. Some rich person now would have an au pair raise their child and care for their child.
What is an au pair?
It's someone who lives in their house and, like...
So it's a live-in nanny?
It's a live-in nanny, yeah. They make a lot of money, too.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. I've never heard of that.
I'm glad I could teach you something today. Honestly.
Jack is teaching us all. Coming out the gate strong.
Hey, maybe it's an excuse to keep me on the show.
I'm sure you'll be back. Alright, well, that concludes this week's episode. I'm not sure what next week's episode's going to be about. We're in the process of recording lots of different episodes and then editing them and putting them in an order. There are a lot of bigger things happening in the podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to be having a lot of fun with that.
Yes, video guy. You can contact us at oopsiartedpod@gmail.com, and you can find us on YouTube at oopsiarted.
With an exclamation point.
Yes. Don't forget the exclamation point.
It's an exciting show. We have to make sure.
I'm kidding. I hope you guys have a great week.
I was happy to be on the show.
Bye.